This podcast is brought to you by the letters KYLT. Bill, let's talk a little bit about growing up in Missoula, where you guys lived, what school, what grade school maybe you went to, just some of the memories of growing up, little Billy Rule.
Billy Rule, yeah. Do you want me to explain that first? Rule is my middle
Sure
name.
can.
Yeah, Rule
Argo
is my
let it out of the
middle name.
bag.
RUHL, and it just felt like a good air name, so that's how it happened. I remember doing the old Billy Rule pick to click when we were having listeners vote on the pick of the week of the new the record that we had. Anyway, so I played Little League Baseball, and you're going to love this. My family, when I was born, was living on Chestnut Street, which is a little street. It's a north-south thing, a block off Orange Street at Sacagawea Park. So I lived on the corner of Chestnut and 6th.
Okay.
And so Sacagawea Park was right across the street. We moved from there to a house on Burlington. And from there, my parents moved to University Avenue. So a lot of my growing up years, grade school, high school, were in the Beverly house. And then after my folks died, my wife and I bought out of the will, we bought the house they built on Beverly and stayed there for a few years. But my grade school I went all 8 years of grade school to Paxton. Great school, a lot of great.
Okay, right. On South
Higgins. Yeah.
Yep.
So that was my grade school for all 8 grade school years. Yeah. And wonderful neighborhood to grow up in. We have an event now that's a reunion of people who grew up in the university neighborhood or around there in 1950s and 1960s.
Wow.
So we've done that for 9 years now. I think it's about ready to die out.
Well, Beverly is such a beautiful street. It's just an iconic street in Missoula.
Yes. But University
Gorgeous.
Avenue put us in the university campus was totally different back then. They had
So did you live at home when you went to the U?
I'm sorry?
Did you live at home when you went to the university?
Actually, I joined a fraternity. I was a Phi Delt. I lived in the Phi Delt house for a couple of years. And then part of one of those 2 years, my grandmother, who lived on McLeod, one street over from university, her husband passed away. And so I went and stayed with her for a few months just to keep her company and so forth. But the university campus was so much different, where Schreiber, the old men's gym is Schreiber Gym. The football stadium was right next to that. And from there all the way to the river, there was nothing. There was no road behind the university. So when you went to a football game, a lot of people sat on Mount Sentinel to watch the football games because they were right there. I remember sledding down. The M trail then was not a zigzag. If you went to the M, you had to go straight up. Remember sledding down that straight, being a maniac and sledding down that straight line with a lot of people hitting golf balls on that big open space. And then then it became the university center, and then campus filled in, and then the football stadium eventually took over the rest of it. But it was a playground for us when we were younger. Playing on Mount Sentinel, playing on the campus, getting into dorms during the summer that we probably shouldn't have been in, and had a fraternity house next to us that we got into in the summer and almost got in trouble there a couple of times. But no, Missoula's that's why I'm still here. I've never thought about leaving. My entire life I've spent in Missoula, and I don't regret a second of it. But so, yeah, I had a good growing up. When I started high school, I went to Hellgate High School, and they were in the process of building Sentinel. So I went a couple of years at the Hellgate building and then moved over to the South Avenue. So when all of the stuff was transferred, the Spartan stuff was transferred to Sentinel, I was really upset because I said, that's terrible. It was all earned, at Hellgate. But what I didn't know until later was that the school board wanted to get rid of Hellgate, build the new high school then, but they got such an uproar from the community about not using the Hellgate building that they ended up staying there, and then they became the Black Knights of the Clark Fork, and Hellgate's always had a little bit of a chip on its shoulder because of that. Do you remember
I went to Hellgate. I went to Hellgate for 3 years. I did not know that they were the Spartans at one point.
Yeah.
So that is fascinating.
Yeah. And my mother went there in high school ages ago, and the building had a big fire, and she had to go to live with relatives in Long Beach, California to finish high school. But
It's a great school. It's still a great building. Haven't been into it for years and
yeah,
will occasionally, this is kind of weird, have dreams about it, but, great memories.
yes. You know, it was interesting when I did high school games after 2011. One of the things you had to do, of course, was lug your equipment around and broadcast from up above the balcony at Hellgate. One of the things that got me out of the play-by-play business was I was getting older and I was getting tired of mounting these stairs all over and setting up equipment and taking it down. And that was one of the things that I wanted to get behind me. But high school was a great time. I had my 50th reunion in 2023. Everything was great. I'm sorry, 2018. Yeah, it was just amazing.
It goes fast, doesn't it?
It does. Well, trust me, it goes faster the older you get too. It's the one thing that's really
Which is
not
kind of
fair.
why we're doing this.
Yes, thank you. We did a retirement luncheon for Jud Heathcote, um,
You did?
in Spokane. Yeah, when he finally retired, a bunch of us, including some former players, went over there to have lunch with him. And he was droll as always. You know, he had a couple of he had so many funny stories to tell. It was incredible. But he said, when he finally spoke, he said, I'm really, really happy that all you people took the time to come over and have lunch with the old coach before he dies. That was his exact words. I mean, it was quite a while later before that happened. He was a true character, obviously a great coach. So anyway, growing up
Amazing.
in Missoula was
What a
blessed.
what a tree too. So he, had a great coaching tree that lives on to this day.
I know. It's just remarkable.
I mean, with Izzo in Michigan State and, his fingerprints are all over multiple, from Christopher to Montgomery and Heathcote and
Well, in
Stu
Celtic.
Morrill,
Yeah, in
well,
Celtic.
Selvig and
Yeah. Yeah,
Taylor.
right through to Blaine Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to
Yeah,
do
it was
games for all of those people, so
well, and with that, I would love to hear, just thoughts or maybe a story from, each of those little eras because each of those guys were incredibly Grizzly basketball has almost continuously been successful. In fact, you can make the case that the current coach, and I'm sorry, his name escapes me, he's directly from the tree as well because he
yeah.
was coached by who's
Yeah,
the current coach?
Travis DeCure.
Yeah, Travis.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he is a direct descendant of
Yes.
Jud Heathcote.
Yeah, and Blaine Taylor. He was an assistant
And Blaine,
coach to Blaine
absolutely.
Taylor at one time.
Yep.
So, yeah, the whole thing just keeps going on. I'm not sure right now if Travis is gonna ever leave, but that's fine with me if he doesn't. He does a great job. But that
Yeah.
coaching tree, so Jud Heathcote, I've already told you a couple of things about him. Jim Brandenburg was in kind of a tough spot because he was so small compared to Jud when he was Jud's assistant. He was so much in the background. Jud pretty much controlled everything and was the star of the show and everything. So when Jud decided to leave, there was some movement from some fans and boosters and stuff to not give the job to Jim. And I'm one of those people that always feels like unless the person that's next is terrible, that person has earned the chance, and especially if you worked for Jud. But Jim was a really good coach as well, but I don't think he ever got out from under, I don't want to call it a stigma, but I don't think he ever got totally out from under that. I think it put undue pressure on him. And of course, then he had his own scandal, the Lee Johnson thing, when they were found to have an ineligible, forfeited some of their games. And, Jim actually got out of here pretty fast and did exceptionally well elsewhere.
Yep.
So,
San Diego State, as I recall.
yeah, San Diego State, Colorado State. Anyway, and again, once again, I stayed in touch, had a lot of phone conversations with Jim for many, many years after he left Missoula. So then Mike Montgomery was his assistant. And again, Mike was very young, obviously had a great personality, totally different, kind of a young, cocky guy. And there was some questions about bringing him on as well. but obviously he turned all those concerns around fairly quickly. I mean, a lot of people still can't believe he was hired by Stanford. But I
He had
just
a
know,
great career at Stanford.
yes,
Holy
he had a
cow.
great career there. Plus, if you got close to Mike, you could see beyond the wisecracks and all of the stuff that he did, that he was extremely bright, and he had the
Yeah.
look. He had the look, young, good-looking guy. He had the look and the personality where he would have no problem, in my view, dealing with the big boosters at Stanford. He could meet with anybody without much difficulty, especially after a couple of years here. So, and of course, his story lives on. He's doing a lot of TV work now,
Oh, I
and
didn't know that. Good for
yeah,
him.
yeah, and he's very good at that. Then it went to Stu Morrill, and again, some people had doubts about Stu. And I remember when Stu was still waiting to hear, I was working in the department at that time, and he asked me to come into his office, and he said, "I just wanted to run something by you." He said, "If I get the job, the first thing I'm going to do is hire Blaine Taylor as an assistant, because he's the best basketball mind I can get."
Okay.
And
Wow.
Blaine had a certain reputation, going along with him.
Now, wasn't Blaine at Loyola at the time?
Yes, he was at Loyola at the time.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, which was another, I guess, probably an issue for some people. Blaine was I mean, talking about getting to work with a bunch of unique personalities, and then Blaine went on to coach at Old Dominion. He had everybody knows about his drinking problems and stuff, and that finally caught up to him. And I'm happy to say that he's finally passed all of that. But yeah, so then when Blaine left, Don Holst got the job, and
Oh, that's right. Yep.
he was not part of the tree. Don coached for, I think, about 3 years, and that's when Kristoviak came back to coach. So he immediately, it was like the Holst limb didn't exist on the tree, but he actually won a conference championship while he was coaching. Don did. And then, so Larry came on. He was a hard-nosed coach, played hard. He believed in working hard. He demanded hard work from his players. I was at the Missoulian. I'm sorry. I totally skipped. Who did I skip? After,
Pat Kennedy was in there at
well,
one
Pat
point
Kennedy
too.
was in there for a brief time, which was a whole other story.
Right. We can skip that.
Why am I forgetting the name of one of our coaches? Well, I know why I am. But anyway, so he actually started about 2000. Wayne Tinkle was in there.
Tinkle, yeah. Didn't Tinkle follow Crisco?
Yeah. So I'm still missing
Yeah.
somebody.
And he had a great career at Montana.
And maybe he followed Kennedy. But anyway, doesn't matter. So anyway, I'm at the Missoulian at the time, and so it's about 2005, and I'm down working in the online department. So he went back there after all those years. And somebody from the athletic department called the editor of the Missoulian to ask if they would be willing to loan me out to go on a trip with the Grizzly basketball team and do some games, because it was an overlap with something and the regular announcer couldn't go, who I think was Mick.
Wow.
So
that was in 2005.
roughly, yeah. I mean, I could have some paperwork back here and give you the exact time. But anyway, it was a long trip. We were going to go play Cal Santa Barbara, University of San Francisco, and Stanford. So we flew into LA. So I'm asking somebody, well, where do we catch the bus? Well, assuming we were going to bus trip the whole thing. Well, I was informed at that time that we were renting cars and that I was going to be one of the drivers, which I totally understand why they didn't let me know that ahead of time, because I probably would have known. So we get done, we play at Santa Barbara. The Grizzlies, it was a game the Grizzlies should have won. It was one of the first games under Kristoviak. He was without a player who was ineligible. Again, the name's going to leave me. But that player went on the road trip. They found out, I think, after we left that he was ineligible. Kamar Davis. And so anyway, we play Santa Barbara and lose. And Chris goes so upset that he calls a team. He gets to gym for the next morning, gets everybody up early, and they had a practice that was one of the bloodiest, most brutal practices I've ever seen. He really put them through the mill. And then after that happened, I had to drive with 3 players in my car, weren't in a very good mood, and I had to keep up with Larry because I had no idea where we were going to get off for lunch. We were driving from there to San Francisco. So I just was driving like a maniac, and the players were trying to help me keep an eye on Chris Carr, and we did notice that he went off, and we followed him off and I can't remember where we had lunch. But once we got done with lunch, Larry just took off with his group. He wanted to get down to San Francisco. So a couple of the players in the car with me, or at least one, had some notion of driving from where we were eating to San Francisco. Finding the hotel was going to be another different story, but somehow we found it. We played San Francisco.
So what was that like? What was that like getting behind the mic again and getting to call Grizzly basketball?
Actually, I was kind of surprised. It was a little bit different technically. I think we were still using phone lines, but yeah, I mean, the equipment was a little bit different, but I didn't have a problem with it, really. I don't think, it was I kind of enjoyed it, except for the driving. And so the day of the game, team would go out early, shoot around a little bit and so forth. Kristoviak, I found somebody else to drive players over. So I decided to go with Kristoviak. He took Kamar Davis early to the gym. And so I went along, and I wish I could remember who took the car. But anyway, so he put Kamar through a grueling workout, one-on-one, during the pregame. And Larry did everything Kamar was doing. I mean, he was in his sweats, and it was, so that was interesting.
He was a good coach.
Yeah. He was serious. It was first year. And so anyway, after that, we played the game against San Francisco, and we got throttled. We got beaten badly. And then it was on to Stanford. And it was great.
Was that against Montgomery?
Yes, it was against Montgomery. So that was great.
Okay.
It's great to see him, and I think I saw Sarah after the game. But anyway, so Stanford, of course, beat us up pretty badly. And then next day we caught the plane, I think in San Jose, and flew back to Missoula. So that was another session. That made sure that I had done some kind of basketball play-by-play to that point in 5 different decades.
Oh, amazing.
Starting with the 60s. So then went back to the Missoulian, worked there till I retired. My wife retired in 2009. I retired in 2011, and immediately sent a letter to all of the stations in Missoula indicating my interest if they decide to do high school games or whatever. And a woman named Bobby Bewley, who you don't know, she was working with us when I was at Clear Channel with Gene. And she was working for Cherry Creek or whatever the previous name before was. And so she had a new boss that had just moved in from California, and he was a real sports nut, and he showed her the letter and said, "What do you know about this guy?" And that's what led to me doing about 5 years of high school play-by-play, and not only football and basketball, but girls basketball also. So I did, several state tournaments, last one in Butte, announced to all of my colleagues that I was done. Less than 3 weeks later, I got a call from one of them asking me if I could do some softball play-by-play at a tournament in Missoula, and I said, no. But anyway, so I didn't care whether it was high school, grade school, college, or what it was. I just loved doing play-by-play, and so that extended my career. In 2015, in the summer, my wife's illness had become more apparent by that time, but I got a call from the university from Travis, asking if I would be willing to go with the team to the Virgin Islands. They were playing in an invitational tournament in the Virgin Islands. There would be 3 games, and it was during Grizzly Bobcat football weekend, so Mick couldn't go. And maybe it was Riley. Riley was involved in one of them. And so I actually emailed my kids, and I said, I don't know if I want to open that door again. I had just chopped it off, and my second daughter, Micah, immediately texted me and said, "Dad, open the damn door. It's the Virgin Islands." Well, during the few years we had become Lynn had become very good. Well, this started with this trip, actually. Lynn became very close friends with Ahmad Rory, Michael Ogine, and Saeed Pridgett. And the way that happened was Travis had made the players aware that Lynn had an illness. So when we got to the Virgin Islands, all the luggage got put on the bus. And when we got to the hotel, I went to get our suitcases and stuff. And Ahmad Rory grabbed me and he said, "We've got this." So for the rest of the trip, we never had to handle luggage or anything. They were extremely kind, to Lynn, and which she just loved. I've got some great pictures of her with all three of those players after one of the tournaments in Boise. But anyway, so I did the 3 games there. They were trying to use a phone line in the Virgin Islands, which is not a phone line country. So had all kinds of technical difficulties. And North Carolina State was there. They were a Learfield station. They had a Learfield station. So I borrowed their equipment to do the last 2 games. And of course, I was totally out of my league with that equipment too, but I got it figured out. I mean, we got hung up on during the first game so many times, it was ridiculous, and I was frustrated. And then 2 years after that, the same thing happened. They had a tournament they were going to in the Bahamas. So again, said, "I want you to do the games." So my daughter, Micah, who told me not to shut the door, came along with us. She joined us, flew into Atlanta, joined us there, and she went to the Bahamas with us and basically took charge of Lynn, so I could do my play-by-play and not worry about hers. Anyway, so that made it
Great stories, Bill.
6 decades.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yep. So who could ask for anything more to do what you love so much?
No, as someone who's close to retirement myself, that's kind of what I'm looking for is, how do you stay involved and, keep your mind sharp and have a presence and at the same time give back to an organization like the Grizz that you've been so involved with for so many years.
My father was one of the founders of the Century Club, which was the original
Neat.
booster club in the mid-1950s. So my first exposure to Grizzly players and coaches started right then. I mean, Stan running some of the greats. I got to meet some of those people. So I was right in the middle of it. If people say you're born this year, I was literally born a Grizzly. And I've never been happier to say that. But
so working with you, we always called you, and your name is Grizzly Bill Schwanke, but it seemed like I read someplace, keep me honest here, that you were actually Grizzly Bill Schwanke before you started calling games. Is that true or not?
Yes. No. It happened afterwards. My name switched to Grizzly Bill because I was doing the games.
Got it. Okay.
Have you got time for another Gene Peterson story?
I've got all day.
Okay. Well, so one of the things that we were charged with doing was building a network. There was no network. So the first thing we wanted to do is try and get a station in each of the bigger towns in Montana. And they were all doing high school games. They weren't involved in colleges at all. I don't think Montana State had a network back then. It's the only time I'll use those 2 words together, by the way, during this review. But anyway, we got on Bill Holter, one of the co-owners, had an airplane. So Gene and I got on Bill Holter's airplane to fly to Great Falls to talk to the people at KMON. Is it KMON in Great Falls, the big station?
Maybe.
Yeah, whatever it was. So we went over there, and I'm sitting in on the meeting when he's trying to convince them to hook up with us. And he started talking about me, and he said, if anybody ever came to try and take Bill away, I'd pay him, more to keep him. And, right in front of me, he did this. So not too long after we got back to Missoula, I went into Gene's office, and I was probably crazy to do this, but I just said, Gene, it seems to me that if you were willing to pay me a little more, if somebody tried to steal me away, why can't you just pay me more now? So I actually got a little bit of a raise out of it, but not a huge one. So I look back on that and said, well, I could have gone in there and gotten fired too. But anyway, so that was interesting. It just such a blessing for me to have all of these things fit together. I mean, when I was born in Missoula, there was no Reserve Street, was a dirt road, and there have been so mmany changes and all of that. So let me see anything else.
What's next, Bill? I mean, what consumes your days right now?
I do as little as possible because I'm really good at that.
Well, you worked in
One of the
radio.
things, yeah, when I went to, I'm not kidding. I went to Albertsons, which is where I regularly shop. I don't know how many years ago it was, probably 4 years ago, maybe, or 5. And the checkout woman said, "I recognize your voice. I used to listen to you on the radio." And she didn't look old enough. And I still have people that will recognize my voice. That's kind of interesting. But, I don't. One of the things after Lynn, she died in November on election day. And I had been away from the Rotary Club because of work issues. I interfered with the meeting time. I joined Rotary in the early 1990s, but had been away for a few years. So within a couple of 2 or 3 months after Lynn passed, I went back to Rotary. And now I'm very active with that club. Love Rotary. I'm the secretary. I'm now the membership committee director. So that keeps me fairly busy. That's enough. That's all I need. That's with friends and do things like that. But I was on the 40th and 50th class reunions committees. But I'm ready to relax. I've had some health issues that I had to get through. Still have heart disease, but I'm dealing with that the way I'm supposed to. So yeah, I'm in no hurry to get really.
I do want to tell you that when I was kind of researching a little bit for this, I have a subscription to newspaper.com, and I typed in your name, and of course, 1,000,001 hits come up. But one of the hits that I did get was from 1967, and it was from a column that J.T. Campbell wrote about
John
your
Campbell.
upcoming John Campbell. JT, it said by J.T. Yep, that makes sense. And I'd heard the name, but anyway, he made reference to your upcoming wedding and made reference to the winsome Lynn. And I looked at that. I'm like, that's,
I
I never
remember that
met your
column.
wife, but so your wife was Lynn Schwanke of the bulletin board fame,
Mhm.
and who didn't get up in the morning on Sunday mornings, and we all got the Missoulian. And as a grade school person, you ran to that section of the paper to see, who of your friends had made the bulletin board. What else did Lynn do for the Missoulian?
She went to work for them. She worked over 40 years, 43, I think it was, for them. She did everything. When she and I went to journalism school together. I knew her in high school, but the whole marriage thing kind of developed during those years at the Missoulian a little bit. But anyway, she started out as an intern at the Missoulian. She was the back then they had the teletype, which with dots and stuff that sent the stories out, and they would run it through a
Right. Yep.
machine. In the typesetting, they had lead type back then, and it would set the type. And she would take the ticker tape off and paper clip it together and take it to the right person on the staff and whatever editor needed it. So she did that for a while. When I went to be sports editor there, she was still there, but she did everything. She was the cop shop reporter. She was the law enforcement reporter. She was at one time they had a society page, which was totally
In Missoula?
I shouldn't say this because it sounds bad, but that was totally out of her element. She also was a fabulous photographer.
Nice.
Yes, and she took a lot of various pictures, including some sports pictures, and society editor. And shortly after John Talbot came to Missoula to become the editor, he came from a paper where they were involved heavily in a state spelling bee. So he started
Okay.
the state spelling bee in Montana. And at that time, Lynn was the education beat reporter, and he put her in charge of the state spelling bee, which he did for roughly 20 years. I got to travel with her to some of the ones that were out of town. And in one of the scariest things I've ever done, I actually pronounced at a state spelling bee
Oh my gosh.
without being nervous. You don't want to mispronounce or, uh, but but that was another wonderful experience as it turned out. Like I said, she was a photographer. And then late in her career, she became an editor. She would edit the pages and so forth. Yeah. But she did a lot of outreach when she was education reporter, bulletin board. She did a newspaper and education program where she would go out
Remember that. Yep.
and teach them about newspapers. And she actually made puppets so she could do a puppet show about the newspaper for the younger kids. I mean, and then King Day started showing up in the newspaper where they have the kids' essays and they write essays and poems and draw pictures about Martin Luther. She started that at the Missoulian in about 1991.
Nice.
County Spelling Bee. She ran for the Missoulian. I pronounced many times at that, but she, so since she passed, Empower Montana has named the Martin Luther King Day art competition after Lynn. It's got her name on it. And so does the County Spelling Bee, is now the Lynn Schwanke Missoula County Spelling Bee. I mean, she, again, talking about blessings. I mean, I was out of my league. I was out of my league with her, so I got to fill in with,
Well,
can I throw one in before I forget?
yes, sir.
Fat Dad actually went on a road trip with me, one to do color on a football game. Can't remember the circumstances. So we go to play UNLV. And we're up in the booth, and the stadium there was one of the few that the college teams would play in that sold beer. So Fat Dad and I decided that it would be okay if we each got a beer before the game to sip on during the game. And, it wouldn't be any problem. We weren't going to get loaded or anything. We didn't have enough time to drink to even get mildly giddy. But anyway, very early in the game, I tipped my beer over on my spotting charts. So somebody reached out and paid me back for the stupid move we made to buy the beer in the first place. So Fat Dad made a comment, well, Bill just spilled his Coke on the counter, and we have no spotting charts, blah, blah, this. The second I walked in the door when I got home, my wife said, you had beer up there, didn't you? And I don't know who could possibly have told her that. That's how on top of things she was. Yeah, she was.
No wonder you were always in line.
Yeah, yeah.
For the most part. Yeah. Well, Bill, and the reason I brought Lynn up is obviously both of you guys, what a power dynamic, and gave so much back to the community. So, yeah. The winsome Lynn and elegant Bill Schwanke.
Really quick, that was another really quick. That's one of the things.
You're fine. I got all the time in the world.
I appreciated from Gene Peterson was he encouraged people on his staff to get involved in community things. Remember, Ray was involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yep, as was Argo.
Yes, I got involved in on the committee that built Larchmont Golf Course. I got involved. Lynn and I reignited the Legion baseball program starting in 1971. We did that together for 3 or 4 years. And then, of course, the work at the university. I mean, but I thank Gene for that too, because a lot of bosses don't encourage that. So no. That was great. So I'm done.
He understood the platform.
Yeah, he did.
He really
did a lot of that. He did a lot of that himself. YMCA, the new YMCA, Gene Peterson had a huge hand in. So thank you, Gene.
Bill, oh my gosh. Just so you know, this is going to be a two-parter, and that's fine. Oh, this has been fantastic.
I'm going to call you Scooter because that's what I always called you.
Yeah, everybody does.
I want to thank you for taking this on. I mean, when you called me and said you were going to take this on, and then when I got the shipment of equipment that we thought we were going to have to use, which we didn't, fortunately for you, because I never would have figured it out. But I mean, I just appreciate your efforts. It just means a lot. I enjoy reliving my life again, which I did it in the Molly class a couple of years ago, but this was a lot more expensive. I only had about 40 minutes in the Molly class. No,
thank you. Bill, I wanted your story. I wanted all of your guys' stories out there as part of the permanent record to live on YouTube or whatever for as long as time allows it. You guys meant so much to me. I can't tell you how many times we would run from a Grizzly game out to the car just to hear your recap and the stats and the interview. And it was like, come on, Mom, give me the keys. And then to work with you. And I don't know if you remember this. I think it might have been when Keith left and I was filling in mornings on 100 until somebody, came on full time. But as always, I had the music up way too loud. And this is when we were on Regent Street and you walked in and said, hey, Napa across the street or BAP or whatever it was just called and they were bitching about the music. And I was just more mortified And as it turns out, no, you were just with me trying to get me to turn the music down.
That's good.
Okay, Bill, you could have just told me, hey, turn the music down. And it was too loud. I was guilty.
Yeah, but that's the way rock and roll music is supposed to be played.
Yeah, true.
Yep.
Good deal, Grizz. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, Scooter.
You bet. We'll talk soon.